Here we are with episode 5 of Why Is Your Podcast on a Dead Girl's Phone. My name is Niles, and today I am joined with William Moses, who played Agent Lanford in 14 episodes of How to Get Away with Murder. It was like such an honor to talk to him and have him on. He has been in so many amazing roles and has so many amazing stories to tell, and it was so awesome to sit down with him and to talk, and especially about Agent Lanford, of course, and to get all the behind the scenes secrets and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really awesome to have him on, and I can't thank him enough. And of course, a huge thank you to Deborah, who put me in touch with William and let him know about the podcast, and he agreed to do it. So thank you, Deborah. You're a miracle worker. Oh my God. But yeah, thank you, Deborah, so much for helping me. And again, William, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're on Spotify, please follow the page, and so you know when a new episode comes. And yeah, thank you guys for all the support and the feedback, and it's been so much fun. And every episode after I finish, I'm just like reminded how this show has just changed everything for me. And it's over, but I'm still keeping the excitement alive, and I'm glad that you guys are looking forward to these episodes. And yeah, see you guys next week for episode 6 with another guest from the show, of course, or a writer, or whoever, maybe who knows. But yeah, make sure you guys are subscribed so you find out who it is. And yeah, here we go with William Moses. Thank you for coming on, and Deborah shouting or recommending you, and you agreeing and all that. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I kind of wanted to start with growing up in LA and like a big city growing up, and your mom being an actress and all that. What was that like as a kid?
Well, the Los Angeles that I grew up in, it was a different time, and Los Angeles, when I was a kid, my father lived on the East Coast, so I would go back and forth. But when you would fly to New York City to go, I'd go see my dad. They used to have bell caps, that used to grab your luggage off the carousel, and they were always very New Yorky guys. And they go, "Where are you from?" And you go, "Well, I'm from Los Angeles." Go, "Oh, wow, you're so lucky! It was so great." And it was sort of a golden time, and it was the Golden State, and that was the Golden City in the Golden State. Then after, particularly in the 90s, the city sort of lost its way. It lost its confidence. So we had the earthquakes, the fires, OJ, the riots, and Los Angeles as a place, in my mind, lost its sense of itself. And so the city that I grew up in was, what I remember was anything was possible. There was really no better place to live. There were a lot of exciting things happening, and it was just really, really a neat time in Los Angeles. The city is, I live north of there now. I live in Ventura now, about an hour away, next county up. But I still consider myself an Angelino. It's changed enormously, in terms of traffic and the size of the city. It does not have the sense of itself that it once did. It's a very important city. It's a very important city in the world, and the city doesn't know it of itself. I mean, California is the 5th biggest economy in the world. Los Angeles is the biggest city. It is the media capital of the world, whether anyone wants to admit it or not, it is. The movie business is based there, but the city doesn't really understand that self of it. But your question was, how do I, growing up in Los Angeles, it was an adventure. It was an adventure, and it was an adventure for a lot of different reasons, which I was the youngest of 4. And my mom was essentially a Pasadena housewife who decided she wanted to go out and be an actress. And she studied with Stella Adler at the Pasadena Playhouse and started to get work, and then divorced my father when I was 3 years old. And my mom was single young actress in Hollywood with 4 young boys, me being the youngest. And, and she, it was exciting in that, I can remember some of my earliest memories were, watching her on Perry Mason in the black and white Perry Mason show, and seeing that, I think that was, I believe that was on Sunday nights. I can't remember exactly because I was really young when I must have been 3 or so, seeing her on that, and like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and Gomer Pyle, and, sort of these classic, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and, these classic shows that you kind of, they talk about it. I can remember seeing my mom in that. And then, after my father left, my mom was a pretty lady, and she had a lot of pretty famous boyfriends, among them Gene Hackman and Robert Loggia, and these were the kinds of people that would show up at the door. At the time, I didn't quite realize what was going on,
Who they were, right?
But they were, they were definitely my mom's beaux, so that was an interesting sort of experience.
Did you prefer New York over LA, or were you always happy to get back to LA?
Well, I really grew up in Los Angeles. I would see my father at the end of the summers in New York City, and if you had grown up in Los Angeles at that time, versus New York at the end of August, which in those days, John Lindsay and Ed Koch were the mayors. The city was bankrupt. There were garbage strikes all the time. Crime rate was high. There were no curbing laws in the city. It was the New York that I remember as a kid was a dirty, scary place. The New York City that I go to now is a much cleaner, much safer. It's a very different dynamic and vibe. I'm older now, so that has something to do with it. But as a 4, 5, 6, 7, up till 10, 12, that was like a sort of a giant concrete canyon, and it's kind of scary because I didn't know how to get around, and it just was very different. Los Angeles was much bigger, much more spread out, much quieter place. You could find everything, but you had to drive to get there. And it's unlike, it's not centralized New York, like New York.
Like you said, how LA changed, and then New York's probably the same way, always, or obviously always.
New York has
evolving
absolutely changed for the better. And I think, and Los Angeles, I think has, it has its issues now. And it doesn't really matter where I live. I consider myself an Angelino. I'm one of the very few people that you can talk to that give me an address in Los Angeles, and I probably won't need to turn on my Google Maps to get there. I will know where it is. I know the city well. I grew up in the city. I'm very, very well acquainted with the history of the city, and what an interesting history it has, both from, prior to World War II. I think Los Angeles wasn't in the top 20 largest cities in the United States, so the growth and the exponential growth and the explosion of Southern California as a place. And, I came after that. I was born in 59. But, the city was really in its golden age at that period. I think, the 60s and the 70s, it was really, really quite a dynamic, fascinating place. It's not that it's not now. It's just, the lack of foresight in terms of public transportation, all those sorts of issues, and the increasing, population, and, that the city is so decentralized, it's created a lot of problems for it. So, but I still love it.
Only been there a couple times, but I'm hoping to come back once everything's safe again. So
yeah, right, exactly.
I can't wait. And then education wise, I was wondering if you could talk about where you went to school, and when acting became part of your plan.
I went to Harvard High School, which is now Harvard Westlake High School, which is a very, it's one of the better high schools, certainly in California, and probably now is probably one of the better high schools in the Western United States. College preparatory school. I was not really that interested in acting. My love was playing basketball. That's what really was my focus. And I was, pretty decent high school basketball player, and used my basketball abilities to get into a school called Wesleyan in Connecticut, in Midtown, Connecticut, and which is one of what they call the Poison Ivies, or the Little Three. And very academic, very good school, very small liberal arts school. I got to Wesleyan University, and I was really, my stepfather, my mom, when I was 10 years old, married my stepfather, who was a U.S. congressman from California, in the Southern California area. And he really raised me, adopted me, and his name was Alfonso Bell, and he adopted me and raised me as his own son. And I went to this school, to Wesleyan, with the idea that I was going to go into politics and then run for office and become a lawyer and then run for office and do that. And when I got to Wesleyan, I sort of realized that I was making a lot of choices that were going to make a lot of people proud, but not make me very happy. And so when I was at Wesleyan, the basketball coach said, it was a tough academic school. He said, you need an easy class, take set design. And I got into set design, and what I strangely found I really liked was set design, and didn't like much else. All the things that had been meaningful for me
went away, kind of, yeah.
They went away, and it was I felt kind of lost, and didn't really. I just knew that the path that I had taken was one that I knew at 19 years old that this was like, well, this isn't what I want to be, and what do I want to be? So I had left after the first semester, and then came back and started working as a carpenter in Los Angeles, because I had some experience in that, working as an apprentice carpenter, and, dug a lot of dishes and carried a lot of cement and, mixed a lot of cement and pounded cleaned up a lot of construction debris. But my parents said, you can live with us, but you got to work. So I was working and doing that. And then I was at a party, and one night this guy said, well, you look a lot like this guy Harry Moses did about 5 years ago. And I said, well, there's a reason for that. I'm his younger brother. And he goes, well, I'm his commercial agent. Have you acted? And I don't know what in the world got into me. I looked him straight and went, yeah. And and he goes, well, would you like to do commercials? I went, yeah.
Why not?
And long story short, there was, through my stepdad, who was a sort of a cowboy and had a lot of experiences in the early days of California, and was really sort of a real Western man, and taught me a lot about riding horses and stuff. There was a Sprite commercial that needed an actor that could ride a horse, and like every actor goes, yeah, I can ride a horse, and of course none of them really could. I crashed my car on the way to the audition, wasn't going to go, and my brother came and got me and took me, and I got on this horse in Griffith Park, and it was these stable horses, which are kind of lazy. And I kicked him up, and he wouldn't get going. And then he started trotting, and he stopped. My foot fell out of the stirrups. And by then I was fed up. I took the end of the reins and went, shoo, and hit that horse. So he woke him right up and got him right underneath me and made him run around. And I ran all the way down, ran all the way back, got to the people, and then turned that horse and said, I'm going to show you, and kicked him out and made him run around. And I got up the horse, threw the reins, and walked away. And I got the commercial.
I hope so.
And that was 2 weeks later. And strangely, the person that I did the commercial was Jamie Rose, who later played my sister in Falcon Crest, and had a television series called Midnight Blue. She played my love interest in the commercial, and I got in front of the camera that first time, and it was I was not very good. I mean, but it was sort of every experience imaginable. It was flying and falling and horrible and wonderful, and it was scary but exhilarating. I mean, it was all this sort of thing, and I got interested, and I sort of decided that maybe I just felt like, okay, why this carpentry thing is great, but maybe I should go back to school. And what I would do, I went back to USC, and then I would, my dad said, okay, well, we'll pay your rent, but you got to be in school. And that's fine. And I would go every morning from 8 to 11, and I'd go on commercial auditions all in the afternoons. And in a 2-year period, I did like 18 commercials, so national commercials. And I used that money to take professional acting workshops in Los Angeles. In those days, the studios, in association with the studios, there were casting directors that taught, audition classes and acting classes and all kinds of different things. And so I started doing that, and my mom's agent found out that I was doing commercials and said, "Would you like to act?" After about a year and a half, I said, "But yeah, I think I'd like to try." And going into my senior year, I had done my first movie, which is a movie called Choices, and I played Demi Moore's elder brother, and she played my sister, and I played the best friend of the hero is a football movie. And we wrapped that movie in October, and 1 week later, a man named Earl Hamner, who had done The Waltons, was casting a new show called, at that time, The Vintage Years. And I went to read for Doris Saba, and she said, "You're pretty right for this. You could be really good in this." And went through about 7 or 8 different auditions, and at this day that we tested at the studio was the day that I was supposed to take my final in international relations, and I had to get a note signed by the head of CBS so that they would let me defer my final in international relations so I could test for Falcon Crest. So I tested for the show, took my final the next day, and got the show. Just before Christmas, I think, in 1980, I think. And we went and shot the pilot in the early spring, and that later became Falcon Crest. And then I was sort of, I went from being this sort of kid that did some commercials to doing scenes with Jane Wyman and Robert Foxworth and Susan Sullivan, and
140 episodes, I think you did for that.
Yeah, 140 episodes later, I was into a career, and started, having professional experiences, just right after my, meanwhile, before my first experience, but with seasoned veteran trained actors at 21 years old, and started to learn the ropes. And, and the actors, I was fortunate to work for some, was fortunate in a few ways. Some that I knew at the time I was fortunate for, and some that I didn't know. At the time. And it wasn't until many, many, many years later that I started to understand, there's my girlfriend's coming in. Hey. Hi, sweetie. So, okay. It wasn't until many, many, many years later I started to understand what was valuable. Jane Wyman, when I started the show, was not particularly nice to me. I mean, she was very rough on me. She thought I was a snot-nosed, know-nothing kid. Of course, I hated. And of course, she was right. But her thing was, your day will be okay if you show up on time, you know your lines, and you're courteous to the crew. Okay? You can make mistakes, but you have to have that together.
Those three specific. Yeah.
Those three you have to have that together. And if you don't have that together, Jane was going to make your day very bad. And she was like a very strict school marm. And, we worked on different sides of the family, but many, many years later, after the show had finished, I had done a TV movie called The Rock Hudson Story, and I played Mark Christian in the movie. And Jane had known Rock, and I had been well off of Falcon Crest, and I think Falcon Crest was off the air at that time. But when that movie aired, and my father was my stepfather who raised me in love. He was an old, he was a man of his generation. So playing Mark Christian for him in the late 80s was nobody had really done that kind of thing, you know, so that was scary to me personally. But the person who called me right after the movie aired was Jane Wyman, and said, you know, I want to tell you how proud I am of you, and the growth that you've made as an actor, and also how brave you've been in the choices that you're making. And it was, you know, God, I'm thinking about that. It makes me emotional now. It took all that time, and it took almost 11 years to kind of get that call from her. So, and to have that kind of reinforcement. But, you know, her professionalism was sensational, and the training of that was really a real gift. I don't think I realized it at the time. And then, you know, the other actors, you know, Bob Foxworth, you know, he had gone to Carnegie Mellon, and he said, you know, you should be working on your voice, and had me doing Alexander and vocal work, so that, you know, you have so that your voice has some bottom and some gravitas to it and stuff like that. And Susan had been, in her way, helpful too, in terms of just, you know, understanding what, you know, the filmmaking process, and where you need to really, where you really need to deliver in your performance and in shooting stuff. So technical stuff, there was a lot of wonderful things that were great about that. And it was during that period that I also, I started to study with a woman, an actress, a very famous, legendary actress named Kim Stanley, who originated all the Inge plays on, you know, Bus Stop and Picnic on Broadway, and was part of the core group of the Actors Studio, and is, in terms of the method, one of the landmark figures. And so I worked with her during that period for about 6 years too. And she was, and then Peggy Fury, who's another kind of wonderful, you know, these are sort of actors' names, you know, they may not mean much to anyone else, but they were people that were contributed to, you know, my knowledge base. And then years later, with another acting coach named Larry Moss, who's really fabulous, wonderful. If you ever get a chance to listen to him speak, or you see him on a podcast, he's just so inspirational, and his explanation of the actor's role, and why acting the actor's role is important, and what it brings beyond to our culture, to our society, what that artistry can bring, what it can do, what it can evoke. So those were kinds of.
Yeah, that's why I was excited to have you on the podcast, because you have such a long list of your filmographies, like over 130 credits, and I was really looking forward to having you on and getting your experience and your knowledge, and
yeah,
it's really awesome to hear from.
No, it is. I mean, it's one of the, you know, it's one of the very few professions that, you know, I'll be better at 81 than I was at 21.
Right.
You know, assuming
say that
yeah, there are very few professions that you know, that you can say that, where your understanding of the, you know, it's a craft, and the more you work at it, you know, you know, we're craftsmen as actors, you know, and the more that you work at it, every once in a while you can elevate it, the craft to artistry, and that's sort of the you know, like the hit, the you know, the drugs, you know, if you will, you know, that sense of when you have that experience where in sports, you know, I remember the first time I ever threw a pass, you know, playing football, you know, and the ball spiraled perfectly and went exactly where I threw it.
Where you want
it. You know, everything went slow motion. I saw the whole thing went in slow motion. And acting, when it's at its highest levels, very concentrated, you have that experience too, where you're there and in the moment, but you're also up here seeing the moment as you're in the moment, and knowing that everybody's in the moment with you. And on stage, it's electric, and it happens on movie sets. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, I mean, and when you see it, it's mesmerizing. I mean, it's When you see it, it's mesmerizing, and when you get to experience it, it's even. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever known, really.
And then having it caught on or recorded on film,
Yes,
like
yeah,
having it live forever. That's great.
yeah.
That's
Having it live forever is really something. Yeah.
and it's really cool, like having all these roles, and they're gonna find people like different parts of their, like these roles are gonna like live forever because someone will always find these new or your old movies and your, like.
You hope so. I mean, a lot of them are quite forgettable, unfortunately. But some of them will. I think some of them have a chance of living on. I mean, Mystic Pizza is doing pretty well, so it's still
Oh yeah,
sort of
I
alive,
was
and
gonna ask about
that's
that's on
still
my
people
list.
are still watching that, and periodically people still come up. I mean, that's been more than 30 years now since I made that movie.
And that was with Julia Roberts even before Pretty Woman and all that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
before Steel Magnolias, it was. She had done one movie with Liam Neeson, and then this one, and it was, yeah, that was quite a wonderful experience, a neat experience to have.
Yeah, I just watched the I forgot. I think it was like the 25-year anniversary for Mystic Pizza. I just watched that the other
Mm.
day to get ready for this interview, and that was cool seeing you guys all together and going over the couples and all
Oh
the
yeah,
the scenes. And I forget which morning show it was for, but
it was for Good Morning America.
Good
Yeah,
Morning.
it
Yeah,
was. I hadn't seen. Well, it was the first time we'd all been together in 25 years, but that was now 5 years ago. We had
yeah.
that that reunion.
Have you kept in contact with anyone since that, or just kind of?
Periodically, I hear from Annabeth, and our paths cross because she lives in Los Angeles, and we know some people. Periodically, our paths cross. But no, I don't really. I don't see Vincent on occasion. My daughter went to NYU and teaches children's acting at the
Oh,
Strasberg Institute in New York City.
that's cool.
And one of her students is Vincent D'Onofrio's son.
Oh,
That's kind of an interesting that's kind of an interesting thing. That was like, wow, that's a small world.
full circle, kind of. Right. And
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to touch on Falcon Crest a little bit more. What was it like playing the same character for that many years and that many episodes?
Well, gosh, that it was. You have to understand. The '80s television was a very different time in television. And sort of the period of time where television was at its zenith in terms of audience. In 1980, there's CBS, NBC, and ABC. There were only three networks. There was no cable television. I think there was maybe Z Channel, which doesn't even exist anymore. I think there was one cable outlet. So, on a Friday night, Falcon Crest would get 40 million viewers, right? That's, we averaged a 37 share, and a share point was 1.2 million. Now a share point's 900,000, right? So, I mean, so the
Wow.
reach of the show was so incredible. For me, the experience of doing the show, the learning curve was so. In terms of the learning where you really were learning about acting in front of the camera, about acting, about working with people, that was such a. There was so much about that was just phenomenal, just phenomenal. Um, and then there's the soap about the soap of making the soap was almost better than the soap we put on the TV, if that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
meaning that there was at that time, in 1980s, where we were as a society and where we were with television and what was going on in television and the revenues being generated. very, very, very big business. And with the very, very big business comes very, very big politics.
Oof.
And that the politics of it, I was not, strangely, my father was a politician, but I was not really equipped to kind of know how to,
Handle
and,
that. So,
and
yeah.
some of that intrigue was um, some of that intrigue was pretty rough. But overall, playing Cole and being part of it, I really wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, in terms of how much I learned, and in terms of that I got to be there for the 6 years, and the way that I was able to go out with the show, and the time that I left the show, um, was really the right time. I don't think that it felt that way at the time. It was very ambivalent at the time, but it really worked out to be a really good thing and really the right time, because you know a great many of the people that came up in that period of nighttime soaps, and they never, that was it.
That's all they
It
ever.
was the
Yeah.
beginning, middle, and end. And for me, it was a beginning, and that beginning was, I'm extraordinarily grateful. I'm extraordinarily grateful, and with time, I'm even grateful for the things that weren't very pleasant at the time. And there were some things that weren't so pleasant at the time.
Damn. And do you have any roles that, maybe it's cool, but do you have any roles that you've done that have really stuck with you till this day?
Yeah, I mean, uh, I did. There's a few things that that were sort of not seen. I did a movie called 75 Degrees in July that was sort of a very art house movie that I played a rodeo cowboy with, and I really liked the way that turned out, and the experience of doing that. And this character, I like the way the character came out. That kind of rural character is not one that people usually think of me as, but it worked really well, and I was really happy with that. I did a movie with Julia Stiles called Wicked that was an American Spectrum at the Sundance Film Festival. That is really a very, very, very disturbing movie, but the performance was a very tricky part, and I think that was, I like the work in that. I mean, I think it would be too controversial today, but and it was pretty controversial then, but it'd be even more in this climate. And then I did another movie called Fun that won special awards at Sundance, the Sundance Film Festival. It's about two teenage girls that killed an old lady for fun.
Oh, wow.
And I played a journalist that went to interview the two girls in the juvenile detention center, and we shot it at the maximum security section of the juvenile detention center. We shot this whole movie in 8 days, never more than 3 takes, no cuts in any of the takes, no rehearsals, no nothing. Is shot all documentary style, handheld documentary style. I was pretty excited about that, and then there was a good long period where I sort of played, and I guess Mystic's Pizza was the start of that, these sort of, wolf in sheep's clothing kind of characters. And I did a great many of those movies for Lifetime where I was sort of the, well, what a nice guy. And it turns out that he's, some kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of character. And, where you're sitting there, in close up, really close, sweating and clenching your teeth. Scaring some poor woman. So there's a number of those. There's one where I played the twins, and I don't know if it's great cinema, but it was that, but I think it's very effective. Doing the sheer amount of work involved about playing both sides of the of the character, and playing the way that I did it, I was happy, with the choices. There's kind of there's a whole series of people and women of a certain age that are glued to Lifetime. They've seen a lot of that. They've seen me, be nasty in a lot of different ways. Or seen me play characters that are nasty in a lot of different ways.
There's that guy, right? And then 17 Perry Mason movies you starred in as Ken Walensky.
Yeah, I worked with Raymond Burr, who became very good friends with, and was really one of the jobs that I've worked in, that I had the most fun on. Just in terms of these were, I guess I made another 5 without him after he passed away. But we shot them in Denver, and I played the investigator, so that I would show up. We'd do the stuff in the office. Raymond would do the courtroom stuff, and I would do the investigation. And I'd show up in the courtroom with a black eye and a clue, and Raymond would be brilliant, and Raymond would be brilliant. But the way the schedule works is they broke it down. So we shot in Colorado, and I had a full-time apartment in Denver, and I would, and there'd be, a period in these 25-day shoots where I could ski for 7-8 days in a row. And, it was pretty fun. It was a lot of fun. And Raymond we became really good friends. Such a interesting and complicated fellow. And such a generous person. It was really wonderful to know him and to be able to work with him and to be around him.
And what was it like being on the Perry Mason movies and then Falcon Crest, and then having your mom also be in those two titles? What was that?
Well, she came on Falcon Crest later in the show, and that was good. She was very popular with the people that she worked with. She played Morgan Fairchild's mother, and really did a nice job. And on Perry Mason, she did not come and do one of those, but Raymond remembered her and found the episode and watched the episode, the originals, and I think she came out and saw Raymond at one point. But it was all of that was really, it was great. That was really a fun job. That was just so much fun. It was just such a fun job to do, and he had such a big following. It was just, and the members of that crew, I'm still friendly with a lot of people from the crew and that cat. That was just a really fun job.
Skiing in Colorado.
Well, we shot one in Paris, and we did a lot of fun things on that show and got to do a lot of fun things.
And then some of your other credits: Melrose Place, Grey's Anatomy, one episode, American Horror Story, Good Doctor. Any memorable things you have from those?
Well, The Good Doctor was, in the first season, and first season shows that are successful, there's a lot of cooks, but that was, Vancouver in January, it rains all the time. That's all. I was there for like 14 days. It rained 13 of them.
Oh my.
It was a nice experience. Nice to be in a high profile show. The one that I had was pretty interesting was Mad Men. I was in the third to the last episode with that, and that was interesting because of they were so you don't audition with the actual material, and same with American Horror Story. They write a scene that's kind of like the scene that you're going to do, but it's not the scene that you're going to do, and they only give you the scene that you're going to do the night before you're doing the scene. I mean, it's so top secret. It's an interesting circumstance to work with, like American Horror Story. I didn't get the actual scene until I showed up that day on the set.
Wow.
And I think on Mad Men, I think I got it the night before, so it was, it was interesting. It's fun to work on those, real profile shows. Homeland, got to fly to Germany to work with Mandy Patinkin on Homeland, and that was an extraordinary experience. Working with him was very exciting. A very interesting guy. Just a very interesting guy, and it really, when you come on the set and that you have to be on your toes, because it's like from the first rehearsal, you go, oh, this guy's good. You better
keep up. Yeah.
keep up, so, and How to Get Away with Murder was, that was, it was pretty exciting. I mean, I think the third day I worked on that show, I was sitting with Tim Hutton and Viola Davis in a scene, so I'm sitting with two Oscar winners and playing a scene with them. It was like, okay, you're in the big leagues now, brother. So, I mean, so it was fun. It was really neat.
And did you, when those big challenges came, like the American Horse, like getting the stuff the night before, or did you always like that challenge of those roles, or do you prefer like the older?
Each job has its own merits, and there's things you remember about working with different people, and I think, I can be specific to How to Get Away with Murder because I've been thinking about that, knowing that we were going to talk. The thing that I liked about this job was there was something, because when the audition came, it was like, well, it's just a one-day part, and we don't want you reading for a one-day part. But they said, well, it might recur, and was like, well, they always say that. But I read the part. I said, well, let me read the part. And there was some division in my representation about whether I should go. And I just said, when I read the part, I said, I think there's something here that I've never done before. And, and that's interesting to me, that if I can get there, it could be very interesting to play, and, what was it? Well, the character was, this character, Lanford, Agent Lanford, was very intelligent, which was, okay, this is a smart cat. Okay, this is a really, not that I haven't played that before, but this is a smart cat. This is a cat that's
ready to get.
Well, in any room he walks in, he takes second seat to no one. Okay, so that was one. Okay, two, he's very driven. And three, he's a senior guy at the FBI. He has unlimited resources. So he has the most resources in any circumstance with any of these people he's talking to. He's got a high intelligence. He's got a big bullshit meter. He's very driven to get to the truth, and he's got more resources than everybody else. So in the playing of that is, if you have all that stuff and you have it, you really don't have to do too much because you already have it. Right? Which is different than, usually, you don't have to play tough, because it doesn't matter how tough anybody is, because it doesn't matter, because you're their intellectual equivalent, and whatever kind of threat they can bring, you can quadruple it by just snapping your fingers, right? So it was a very interesting way to play it. And what became interesting in the doing of it with this group of people was, I had not really watched the show. I had seen the show and I went, well, they'll never hire me on that show. I mean, what would I play? So, okay, so now I've got this role and I'm investigating. Okay, but so the actor had the same information that the character had, which was trying to put all the pieces together, right? And when you see the board that's behind you, the first time I saw that, it's over your shoulder there. The first time I saw that was on the set.
Oh, just
looking at okay, so this is my preparation for the scene. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? So it became it just was really fun. And the challenge with How to Get Away with Murder, and I suppose it applies to American Horror Story and Mad Men and these other shows, and The Good Doctor, where the material was so secretive, so locked down, so they didn't want it out in the media,
Ruin this
with NDAs and all these other kinds of things that you have to sign. With How to Get Away with Murder was, okay, well, the only thing I need to know is, am I a good guy or a bad guy? Which are my motives simply because this is who I am and this is what I do and this is my position, or do I have an ancillary motive? And so that was, in talking, and that's how I began to become friends with Daniel Robinson and the writers and Tess Leibowitz, and was trying to understand, okay, well, I have the information now, but what is driving it? And inevitably their note was, well, no, you're a straight arrow.
Take these people down, and
Well, okay, so then it's okay. Well, why do I do what I do? I mean, it becomes, it's like, well, why do I do what I do? It's who I am. I mean, so it became an interest. That was fun that process, and the process with this character who really, he didn't have to do a lot, but he could see everything. It had to be instinctive and intelligent, and no matter what, there was nobody that could pose a threat to him. It was an interesting kind of thing to play. It's fun to play.
Throwing out.
Well, I mean, on film acting, this is, they'd always, as a young actor, they'd always said less is more, less is more. And then what you would find in particularly nighttime, less was just less, I mean, but now at this, wherever I am in my evolution, less is more, probably because I have more gravitas just as a human being, more experience, more life, and so.
And then I have a message from Daniel. He wanted me to tell you hello. I talked to him on the podcast a couple weeks ago.
Well, Daniel and I had pitched him an idea when we were doing the show, and we were going to work on it together, but he got Bridgerton. And he started to work on Bridgerton. But then he said, well, I have this young writer named Ricardo Lira. And Ricardo and I have been working on developing a 10-show miniseries. And I'm not sure how much I want to give away right now, but we've been working on it for the last year, and it's been great. He's a fabulous writer and was the researcher on the show and got his first credit working on the show, and is just this wonderfully talented writer. Wow, he's great. And he comes through Daniel. So
that's exciting.
Yeah. So what did Daniel say, by the way?
He just wanted me to tell you hello and how
great.
great of a guy you are and all that.
It's knowing him and working with him. That whole, I've been at this a pretty long time, and I've met all kinds of people, and I've had, wonderful experiences, and I've had some difficult experiences. But in terms of this level of a studio show and network show, this was just a great experience. And it was a great experience for all the reasons that Pete Nowak would be so happy to hear, which is that it was a marvelously diverse culture, tremendous professionalism, tremendous commitment, and everywhere you turn, everybody was good at what they do. I mean, really good at what they do. And it's just like, well, this is great. I mean, this is great. I mean, it was really, it was such a pleasure to come and to be around just everyone. I mean, it just was so many different personalities, but just everybody had something to bring, and everybody had something valid and interesting to bring. And it was, it was very exciting. It was very exciting, very rewarding to do that. And Viola is, I worked with quite a few Academy Award winners, but Viola is really something special. I mean, she's just as a human being, I'm just a very special human being, not to mention an enormous talent, but just I really think the world of her. I think she's just great. So
Me too.
yeah.
And you could tell like everyone on the show really loved it and put 100% effort into everything. And
yeah, there was nobody was walking through this ever at any time. I mean, it was really, it was a very special environment, very, it was really good, a really good situation.
and for Agent Lanford, did you know right off the like from the start that you were going to be an FBI agent, or did you audition for?
No, I knew that I was going to be an FBI agent, and we didn't know. They didn't know what the character may or may not return. And on that first day, Ulrich was I forgot the director's last name. Wonderful man. We were shooting in Billy Brown's direction, and when you watch in the interrogation room, so they have everyone enter, and then when you sit down, they've got the coverage goes one side to the other, right? So yes. They shot in his direction first, but what they do on How to Get Away with Murder, these scenes that you see in little snippets, they're written. One part of the scene will be scene 10, the other part will be scene 22, and the other part will be scene 36. But when you shoot them, they'll compress them all together and shoot them as one. Yeah. And then they'll cut them up and put them in order, per the style of the show. But we went in Billy Brown's direction, and the director was very specific with him, and that they were shooting in his direction, and that we were compressing the scenes. It became, because by the time they shoot in his direction, it's 4 or 5 hours. So it was like the camera wasn't on me, but it was like a 4 or 5 hour rehearsal for me, who was leading the interrogation. So by the time they turned it around, it was like, I think I'm pretty ready to shoot this now. And the nuance was, and you can really work on your relaxation. And in relaxation, when you're relaxed as an actor, more things occur to you, and you start getting more nuance to the performance. It was very useful for playing Lanford. I mean, useful because it made me sort of understand, he's, this guy's sharp. He's, these guys are sharp, but he's as sharp. And if they make even a scintilla of a mistake, Lanford will pick up on it. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. It was a neat thing.
And I think you filmed probably the most scenes with Billy, but you filmed with pretty much almost everyone, probably.
I worked a lot with Amira a fair amount. I worked with Jack. I worked with Asia. I worked with Matt, not a lot. I worked with Liza.
Yeah, sure.
Liza, Matt has tremendous, Jack's incredibly talented. Asia's just what a peach of a person. And also, wow, she's smart. Smart lady. Jack is a really good actor. He's a really good actor, and it kind of, he feels to me like, that I wouldn't want to say anything, he has sort of a stormy interior, I think, as a person, now maybe that's, a good guy, but I think there's a lot going on under the surface with him. and Matt had tremendous. I only did one scene with him, but his concentration was fantastic.
Oh, with
The
the
way
yeah.
that he works is with relaxation and tremendous concentration. Which is, I remember that. Liza is.
I love her.
She talks so quietly, so you really, when you're playing with her, and I think this is a character thing because I've seen her do other stuff, and I think it was a choice. You really have to listen so much because it's so quiet. And she's one of there are a few people that I worked with that you see it and it you go, okay. And then when you're filming it, and then when you see it on film, you go, wow,
That's what
Liza
she was
has that. She's like, who the other guy that I worked with, James Coburn, just before he won the Oscar, and working with him, it was like, he doesn't have it. He didn't have it. And then when you saw it, it was like, he was just amazing. Some little, it went into the camera and some little special dust got sprinkled on it. And it came out like the camera was seeing things that I couldn't see. Liza has that kind of, there've been a few people like that I remember Hal Holbrook telling me that when he worked with Henry Fonda, and he said, God, the old man just doesn't have it anymore. And he said, when I saw the dailies, he blew me out of the water. And there are a few people that have that, and I've seen it a few times, not a lot, where it looks fine when you're doing it, but when it comes out, something extra happens. Liza has that. She has that. I mean, it's very, very interesting to watch her, because it's very solid when you see it, but then when you see it on film, it like ascends even more. I don't know what that is. That's a kind of special thing, special quality. And who else did I work with? A little bit with Conrad, who I got to know. And when I remember about Conrad, it was towards the end of the show. He was around because I was always twisting those characters, Oliver's and Connor's arms about, well, I'm going to break, he hit the weak point was Oliver, right? Was that the way to get Connor was to twist, was to lean on Oliver. So I got to know him a little bit towards the end, but at the end he was going, well, the show's coming to an end. So he always had a step counter. He was always running in place between scenes. That's what I can remember. Because the show's going to be over. I can get my next job. I just remember him counting steps all the time. So that was kind of funny. That was amusing.
Oh man! And then one of my favorite scenes probably is when you're with Connor and Michaela, and you're laying out all these pictures of the shows, the past murders, and they're just like completely like destroyed, like mentally, and you're just like laying out these pictures.
Well,
and
that's one of those things where they compressed all those several
because it went back and forth.
So it became this extraordinarily long speech. And when we got that, I do remember that when we got the schedule, it was like, well, they released the script on a Wednesday, and I wasn't supposed to shoot till the next Thursday. I said, well, I've got enough time. And then they moved it. They flipped the schedule, so I had to do it on Friday.
Oh,
it's like, oh my gosh, like study hard,
breathe fast.
Yeah, well, memorizing those lines, and a lot of that is, it's the oral history of the show, really, in many ways. When you're laying out all those pictures,
all the names, I love that. And then
Mm-hmm.
earlier you mentioned when Lanford would walk into a room and he would just like take command of, or he would be the one in charge no matter who he was walking in on. The end of when you walk in to Michaela in the interrogation room with her graduate, and you're like, there's a dead informant on her hands, and lays the fire poker picture. That scene really sticks out with me too, with what you described with Lanford.
Well, yeah, no, it was true. I mean, at that moment, we didn't even I don't think they'd even written the ending. In fact, or at least that's what they would say. I mean, I
Yeah,
just, you know, I had to give it import, although I didn't at the time didn't really know what the import what was,
yeah.
all I said, well, this is important, but why it
Fire
is I
po-
don't know, but you're not going to know why I don't know, so
It'll make sense later, but yeah.
yeah, right.
And then talking about Jack, the scene where he has like the panic attack and
Yes, he was
falls
splendid
to
great
the
in that.
floor.
He was amazing in that.
My jaw was on the floor. Oh, the
Yeah,
whole
no,
final season.
he was amazing in that. And he was that was the first time I worked with Jack, the first time I ever met him.
Oh wow.
And yeah, that was quite an experience. He's yeah, I'm fond of him. Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, I got to see him in a play a couple summers ago in DC, and he was
Oh yeah,
just incredible. It was
talked about that.
something.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
talked about that. Yeah, he said that they didn't get the audiences they wanted to get.
Uh,
They didn't get the house. The house didn't fill up the way they wanted it to. And
it
my
was
dog,
incredible. Yeah.
Scout, Scout, please, Scout. My dog,
Oh, what kind of dog is it? Is she?
German Shepherd.
Oh,
She's sitting here guarding the door as we
right.
speak.
Did you have any favorite Lanford scenes that stick out?
Well, I mean, laying out the cards that was an important moment for Lanford. I like the scene uh, with Deb where she's handcuffed at the interrogation table, and I'm talking to Nate. You know, you were right. What else don't I know? I mean, I thought that was the staging of that scene was very interesting. And when you make that phone call. When we're talking to each other, we weren't actually talking to each other. We were talking
Right.
to a script supervisor reading the lines off,
Off the side.
in
Yeah.
darkness. We're just looking into the darkness, hearing a disembodied voice, not of the person that we're reading with. But I thought that stylistically, that was an interesting. I like the way they shot it stylistically, and also I just thought that was the first moment where Lanford was concerned because he was off course.
Right. Something.
It was the first time he was, because I had felt in the doing of it that, okay, I'm, this is the actor preparing for the role, was going, am I going to get, am I going to get Annalise? Am I going to get Annalise? Am I going to be able to, am I the guy that finally brings her down? Now, to make it interesting for me as the actor to play it, I had to convince myself that, yes, I am going to be both Agent Lansford is the character, and me, the actor, gets to do it.
Take Viola.
Okay, so
Right.
I had that, in my secret expectation vault, that I would get to do that. I didn't, and I think in the preparation, I think I had to convince myself of that, and I had. So when I didn't get to do that, Lanford's disappointment and my own were the same.
And did you have any, or do you have anything, or any idea what you think happened to Lanford after that series ended? Do you? I think Annalise mentions him in her little press conference before the shooting at the end, but
yeah, I mean, my question was, the ongoing discussion I'd had with the writers and with the executive producer who directed all the shows. Why am I not? I had everybody. I'll
Betsy.
think of it in a second. Huh?
Is it Betsy? Is she the?
No, not Betsy.
No.
He was the directing producer.
Scott. Is it Scott?
No, it will.
No.
I'll come up with it in a minute. But
Just name it.
but yeah, right. No, I have I'm so embarrassed when I forget names like that. But was that no? You're a straight arrow. You're on the thing. Now the way it was very clouded at the end. Now I believe that the audience thinks Lanford was crooked. Me as the actor playing the character, and as the character, I don't think that at all. And I would not accept that, so I think Lanford was probably a senior guy towards the end of his career working on Legacy. Oof. And this is probably one of the few tarnishes on his
name, yeah.
Otherwise spotless record, because he usually gets his man. Oof. And I think that's why he was brought in. So I think that he's probably nearing the end of his career, and probably this is the one that got away, and this is the regret. This is his regret.
Yeah, that's deep.
That's what I think.
And if Lanford would have won, he probably would have. That would have been it, probably for.
I think he would. Yes, I think he would have. I think he would have gone on to be director of the FBI or retired.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That would have been the way I would have written it. So that's the way I think. Yeah.
And then your next role is in The Mental State, playing Principal Mullins. Do you have any teases for that?
No, Mental State is my daughter is engaged to a director, and the director is the director of the movie. My play, I do 2 days of work playing, working with my daughter, my eldest daughter, who went to NYU Film School, and we did this a while ago, and that's actually not my next role. That's in the can. And they'll distribute it at some point. Yeah. I'm working in the Oroville next month, and playing an alien. So it's the most makeup intensive thing I've ever done. It will probably be unrecognizable.
That's exciting.
I think the only way I would be recognizable is via my voice, I think, but very fun. Looks like it's going to be a really fun part. I'm very excited about it.
That'd be like prosthetic work and all that, probably, or.
Yeah, because the renderings that I've seen, that would, unless they're going to stick helium in my head and explode my head, yeah. But yeah, it should look pretty wild. It should be pretty wild. In fact, I'm supposed to go do some wardrobe next week for that. In my space suit or I guess alien suit. I guess. Thank you so much.
It was really so fun. Yeah.
When does this air, and how does it air?
I'll probably. Right, no, it's not. It's just recorded for us right now, and then it'll be on YouTube and then on Spotify for just like the audio only.
How's it been going?
Good. I interviewed Deborah last week, which was really awesome, and then Daniel.
I watched Daniel and Deborah, and watched a little bit of Conrad this morning just so I could kind of get the idea of what was going on.
Yeah, I think I'm getting the hang of it better, but it's been like a trial and error thing and getting used to the nerves and stuff, but not used to it. But yeah, it's been fun. I have probably 8 more people confirmed. And
all right. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much. And
thank you. Virtual handshake.
Virtual handshake, and let me know when you get it up and running.
Oh yeah, I'll email you. I can't talk. I'll email you the link for sure. Yeah.
Be well. All right,
but,
Niles.
Yeah, thank you again. It was an honor.
Sometime in the future.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. See you.
Bye.
Bye.